Goes Green by Susan Nelson. Genre: expository text is nonfiction that explains the natural or social world using facts and graphics to help convey ideas more directly to the reader. Question of the week: how are people rethinking Earth's resources? May 4th, 2007 started out as a typical spring day in Greensburg in southwestern Kansas. Greensburg, population 1,400, is the main town in Kiowa County. It's located 6 hours from Topeka, the state capital, and just an hour away from the Oklahoma state line. In that part of the United States, the earth is so flat you can see the horizon in any direction. Every few hours, a train whistles its way across the fertile farmland where the nation's wheat and other grains are grown. On that sunny Friday, flowering trees and white yucca plants were in bloom. Birds sang. A few thousand cedar and other trees stood taller than anything else in town, except for a half-dozen church steeples, the water tower, and the 6-story concrete grain elevator along Highway 54, just north of the town's twin stoplights. As usual, parents dropped off their children at Delmer Day Elementary Junior High School. Teenagers drove to Greensburg High School. Wherever they went, Greensburg residents recognized the people they passed. The people of Greensburg knew their neighbors. As the day unfolded, the air grew humid. More clouds than usual formed in the sky. The wind picked up. Weather reports predicted thunderstorms for the evening. Because it had been so dry, rain would be welcome. The clouds grew thicker. Forecasters spoke of severe weather coming. There would be heavy thunderstorms, they said, and very likely a tornado. Two views of Greensburg, Kansas before May 4th, 2007. But Kansas is a land of many tornadoes. Greensburg lies right in Tornado Alley, where many of the United States' 1,200 tornadoes occur each year. Most of the tornadoes that Greensburg had known might knock down an old barn or henhouse, kick up a lot of dust in the fields, or even blow limbs from trees. Those tornadoes had meant taking shelter and then, after an hour or so, going back to life as usual. This time, however, would be different. By 7 o'clock that evening, it looked like rain. At 8 o'clock, it began to pour. By 9 o'clock, a ferocious wind was blowing trees sideways. Forecasters now said that tornadoes had been spotted in Oklahoma and were moving north toward Kansas. At 9:15, Greensburg's tornado sirens began to wail. Storm chasers, scientists, and concerned citizens who track storms had spotted a tornado outside town. The tornado was huge and wedge-shaped, they said, and it was moving straight toward Greensburg. More on tornadoes. Tornadoes, nature's most violent storms, form when warm, humid air rushing up from the southern United States collides with cooler, dry air pushing down from Canada. When these opposite winds move fast enough, severe thunderstorms called supercells can be formed. Sometimes one of these supercells becomes a tornado. Most of the world's tornadoes occur in the United States in the central Great Plains states, between the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains. This swath is known as Tornado Alley. It stretches from Texas north through parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota. Nearly 1,200 confirmed tornadoes touch down each year. Tornado season usually begins in the late winter in the southeastern United States. It moves to the central states between March and May, and then moves farther north as the weather warms. The season is usually over by late summer. When a tornado touches the earth, its cycling, twisting air can pick up anything in its path, even cars or trucks and houses. A twister, as tornadoes are also called, often forms a funnel cloud. This cloud dances along the earth and grows dark with the soil and debris it picks up. Most tornadoes sputter out or dissipate and disappear with little or no damage, but a few do not. This time, instead of sounding only for a few minutes, the sheriff decided to lead the sirens on. The prediction now was that Greensburg was about to take a direct hit from this tornado. Townspeople quickly went underground. Some climbed into their outdoor storm cellars, but most went down to their basements, where many had a television or radio to track the storm upstairs. There they went to the strongest wall away from windows and crawled under something sturdy, perhaps also covering their heads with pillows or blankets. Not many people thought about putting on boots or gathering up family treasures. They had all seen tornadoes before. Outside, hailstones as big as golf balls bounced off anything they hit. The wind knocked down telephone poles and trees. Roofs lifted up from houses and buildings were blown from their foundations. Lightning flashed on and off, showing the sinister, dark wedge moving steadily across the night sky. At 9:45, the sirens stopped. The city's electrical power station had been hit. Suddenly, it was silent. Next came a drop in pressure that made people's ears pop, as if they were in a plane coming in for a landing. Then, as the tornado raged above them, came the sounds, like ice cubes going around in a blender, or a locomotive overhead, or the roar of a huge waterfall. Windows shattered. Heavy objects, even cars and trucks, were picked up and slammed into walls. The bark was scraped off of the few trees that were still standing, and then it was silent again. But not for long. After the eye passed, the rest of the tornado tore over the same path. By the time it had ground its way across Greensburg, the town was no more. The people of Greensburg slowly came out of their safe places. Some climbed basement stairs and found themselves standing in empty darkness and bewilderment. Their houses were gone. Others found just a part of their homes, maybe a wall or bookshelf or stairway still in place, or maybe a neighbor's car or pickup in their kitchen. As they made their ways outside, residents found that rescue workers had arrived from nearby towns with fire trucks and ambulances. They had come to Greensburg expecting the worst. On foot, through deep rainwater and using two-way radios, rescuers walked yard to yard, calling out to find people who might need help. Greensburg, before and after. The enhanced Fujita tornado scale. Named for scientist Tetsuya Ted Fujita, the power of tornadoes is ranked on an enhanced Fujita EF scale. Category EF0, wind speed 65 to 85 miles per hour. Percent of all tornadoes 53.5%. Damage light. EF1 86 to 110 miles per hour 31.6%. Moderate. EF2 111 to 135 miles per hour 10.7%. Considerable. EF3, 136 to 165 miles per hour, 3.4%. Severe. EF4, 166 to 200 miles per hour, 0.7%. Devastating. EF5, greater than 200 miles per hour, less than 0.1%. Total destruction. Farmers farmers whose property had been spared drove tractors and front loaders into town. They knew that trees and all sorts of other debris would need to be moved so that rescue vehicles could get through. Until batteries ran down, residents used flashlights or the light from their cell phones to find their ways. There was no telephone service. The cell phone tower had been blown down and landline service was out as well. The town's only supermarket was still partly standing, so residents were directed to it. It became the hub of rescue and recovery. Lists were made of residents so that they could be accounted for. Buses pulled up to carry survivors to shelters in schools in nearby towns. Families that lived nearby took in friends and families. It wasn't until daybreak that rescue workers and Greensburg's leaders saw the full consequences of the night before. The tornado that had struck was an EF5, the most serious category of tornado and the most destructive. Greensburg's tornado had been clocked at 205 miles per hour. It was 1.7 miles wide. Kansas tornadoes averaged 75 yards across. Its path of destruction was 22 miles long. Kansas tornadoes average between 1 and 4 miles long. 95% of the town of Greensburg was demolished. Homes and businesses, the stoplights and fairgrounds, schools and gas stations, all had vanished except for a wall or a stairway here or there. Street signs had been wrenched out and had disappeared. The trees and steeples were gone. The water tower lay crumpled, and other landmarks were nowhere to be seen. Only the grain elevator was standing. The air smelled of cedar and tree sap. The ground was covered with debris and toothpick-shaped splinters of what had been buildings and trees and people's worldly possessions. 11 people lost their lives. About 90 were treated in area hospitals. Greensburg's hospital had been destroyed. If not for the accurate warnings that people had heeded, the numbers would have been much higher. Relief workers began to pour into Greensburg. The Kansas National Guard arrived, as did kind strangers, volunteers who had come to help the people of Greensburg sort through what was left and clean what could be saved. Together, they raked debris into piles that were shoveled into dump trucks headed for the town's landfill. There, the fires of what had been Greensburg burned nonstop for 3.5 months. On Wednesday, May 9th, President George W. Bush flew to Greensburg. He walked what was left of the streets and saw the damage, and he declared the town a national disaster area. That allowed the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to arrange for temporary housing and other government assistance. But something was happening in Greensburg even before it was officially declared a disaster area. On Monday, just 3 days after the storm, many residents gathered in what remained of the county courthouse. They wondered about the future. Would everyone move away, or would people stay to rebuild their town? Before long, it was suggested that Greensburg should take advantage of its name and rebuild as a green town. People would have to start from scratch anyway, and what better way to do it? Going green would mean using far less oil and natural gas than before. It would mean generating electricity by using turbines, propellers that spin a shaft connected to a generator to capture the wind. It would mean capturing the sun with solar panels for heat and harnessing geothermal energy from the earth. Buildings in the United States consume about 70% of all electricity used and about 40% of other energy consumed. They emit nearly 40% of the nation's carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions, and they use about 40% of all raw materials. In addition, buildings generate about 30% of the nation's waste and consume more than 10% of its drinkable water. Aerial view of the new Greensburg. The idea began to catch on. Town meetings were held every week, first in a large tent and then in a quickly constructed gymnasium to make a plan for rebuilding. News stories and soon even a television series appeared. They said that yes, people in Greensburg had lost nearly everything, but here was a small Kansas town that was determined to rebuild itself as the first all-green town in the world. Though the cost of rebuilding would be high, townspeople knew that there could be many benefits to going green. They would be helping the environment by protecting ecosystems and biodiversity, improving air and water quality, reducing solid waste, and conserving natural resources. They could also realize economic benefits. If Greensburg rebuilt green, companies that wanted to go green might locate there, which could mean many more jobs. Town leaders and residents grew excited about the possibilities. High school students talked about coming back to Greensburg after they finished their education. Before the tornado, many had thought they would have to leave home to find work. In the meantime, even though there were almost no houses yet built in Greensburg, schools opened in August in trailers. Students came every day from their FEMA trailers or from temporary homes in nearby towns. On May 19, 2008, after a year's worth of meetings, the residents of Greensburg voted to adopt a sustainable, comprehensive plan. Following the plan would make Greensburg the greenest town in the United States and perhaps on Earth. But how would a town go green? First of all, the plan calls for all city-owned buildings to be self-sufficient. They will generate their own energy and make the wisest possible use of natural resources. Also, houses will be built using the newest energy-saving methods. Corporations around the United States quickly donated money and such green supplies as water-saving shower heads. The high school formed a Green Club, organized by Greensburg Greentown, a nonprofit organization. For more than a year after the tornado, club members picked up rubble throughout the town. They planted trees in one of the town's parks and oversaw Christmas trees turned into mulch to help the newly planted trees thrive. The Green Club recycles paper and plastics at the schools and has run light bulb exchanges, trading incandescent bulbs for donated energy-efficient compact fluorescents. The plan for the town emphasizes walking instead of driving to the shops and businesses and other features of the new downtown. Bicycle racks were built outside the Greentown office, and the staff began to ride donated, refurbished bikes. It was a new idea that slowly caught on. Greensburg's new business incubator. Greensburg's plan also includes a wind farm with turbines large enough to provide electricity to power the town. When winds generate more energy than the town needs, Greensburg will sell the excess energy to other communities. Further, the plan provides that all city-owned buildings will be built to meet the highest levels of environmental standards. The U.S. Green Building Council, a nonprofit organization, started a program in 2000 called Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED. LEED standards measure a building's location, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality, and innovation and design. Architects and builders apply for LEED certification for new and existing buildings. Independent reviewers study their plans and then award points based on how well the buildings in question meet these 6 standards. The highest of the ratings is platinum. The town decided that all of its city structures would be built LEED platinum. Greensburg's first platinum building, also the first platinum building in the state of Kansas, is the town's art center. Named for the date of the tornado, the 547 Arts Center has 3 small wind turbines, solar panels, and geothermal heating and cooling. Skylights and a wall of windows on the sunnier south side of the building reduce the need for daytime electric lights. Abundant greenery along downtown streets above, and the 547 Arts Center, the first LEED Platinum building in Kansas. Next to be built platinum was another modern-looking structure for a dozen new businesses, including the first new restaurant after the tornado. This building is Greensburg's business incubator. Its purpose is to provide a place to hatch and grow small businesses, much as other incubators hatch and then support new chicks. Later, when the new businesses are successful, they move on to their own buildings and allow other new businesses to move into the incubator and start the process again. City leaders know that bringing new businesses to Greensburg is necessary if the town is to grow. People expect that the town's population may exceed 1,400 by 2012. The anchor of the new Greensburg is its platinum-rated school. Students from kindergarten through 12th grade will have solar panels and south-facing windows to provide affordable energy. Rainwater will be captured and reused. Skylights will make classrooms so bright that electric lights will only turn on automatically when it is too cloudy outside to provide enough light. Going green means not wasting resources in other ways, too. Greensburg's plan calls for the new school to share space with a media center containing the town's library, the Kansas State University Extension Service, and a museum. The city also decided that one new downtown auditorium would be used both by the school and by a movie theater on weekends. The vision of the city also includes an eco-museum that people from around the world can visit when they want to see how a green town really operates. Included are a chain of homes tour and model green bed and breakfasts. Though the cost of rebuilding is indeed high, townspeople recognize the many benefits to going green. They are definitely helping the environment by conserving natural resources, improving air and water quality, and reducing waste. They will realize economic benefits that come with reduced operating costs of their new buildings. In addition, the health of residents of Greensburg will improve from making walking and bicycling a part of everyday activities. All of this will add to the overall quality of life. So the people of Greensburg are working together to turn tragedy to triumph. The utter devastation of their town offered them a tremendous opportunity to create a uniquely green environment. And they are as determined to succeed as Kansas sunflowers were to bloom again among the town's ruins.